What up? And greetings. So the sun is out and Nax is out. I mean, One Night at Karazhan is coming very, very soon. And we just got the sneak peek and the first couple of cards revealed. The theme is going to be like a 80s disco theme. And that's expected of Blizzard, that always do something funny and hilarious when it comes to Hearthstone. And I'm really glad that they're keeping that after Whispers of the Old Gods. That was sort of darkish, semi-serious. We get an expansion that is pure fun. Again, Karazhan is one of the most popular raids, and it makes sense that they would try to remake it at one point or another after they did Naxxramas. That is considered the best raid in World of Warcraft. Karazhan is some people's most favorite raid, and it still remains. They put a bit of a twist on it. We're essentially invited to this massive party that everyone is going to, but then Medivh goes missing. Why? We're gonna know in the prologue, whose final boss is Malchezaar, Prince Malchezaar. So that might give you an idea about what is happening, and our role is essentially to sort the party out and get Medivh back. That's the way I understand it anyway. Let's take a look at the first two cards which we get after completing the prologue mission. The first one is Firelands Portal. Is a mage card for 7 mana, deals 5 damage, and it summons a random 5-cost minion. This card is interesting. I don't think that it will be a staple in most mage decks. I see Grinder Mage using it, but Grinder Mage is not super strong in the meta right now, unless it slows down quite a bit, or, you know, he gets some of his bad matchups out of the meta. But Reno Mage could potentially use this very well. Reno Mage was super strong competitive deck at one point. It's hard to play, but if you know how to handle it, it can do some crazy stuff. And in Arena, this card is also very, very good. First of all, it's a common. Second, on turn 7, you're already afraid of Flame Strike. Mage has got some crazy value cards, like Kabbalist's Tome just pushes him, and I think people that will play this in Constructed will usually get it from Kabbalist's Tome, and then you're happy because you don't necessarily have to put this card in your deck. But in Arena, removing a minion and getting another minion for, you know, like say extra free mana, because you would play a Fireball and you would destroy a card for a card. For 7 mana, which is free extra, you do your 1 less damage, but you summon a minion that would usually cost you 5 mana. So if you don't have to use a strong minion of yours to finish that other minion off, this can potentially give you really, really good value in Arena. And I think that's why this card will be more of an Arena card than a Constructed card, but again, we shall see. The second card is Enchanted Raven. Probably one of Medivh's buddies, because he used to turn into a raven in all the cinematics. And for 1 mana, 2/2 beast, it would seem like crazy OP, maybe a couple of expansions ago, but because it's Druid specific, and Druid, apart from Living Roots, is still sort of struggling with the early game. We saw some Beast Druids appear lately, and they weren't actually that bad. I mean, they were being played on high legend ranks, and I personally lost a couple of matches to them with, you know, aggro shamans and stuff like that. When they draw well, and if they draw this on turn 1 into Mark of Yashirash, if you don't deal with it, and it turns into a 4/4 on turn 2, by essentially using 1 card, because the second one you cycle, it is kind of crazy. You know, when you think about the Zombie Chow, which, yeah, it's a neutral card, but for 1 extra health, it has a downside, and it doesn't have a beast mark. This being a beast could only really be put in a druid, so it is an abuse, because I think if this was a 1 mana 2/2 beast for Hunter, that would be kind of broken. But then again, they already have Fire Bat, which is kind of broken already. And I think this will help Druid. I mean, Druid used to be just about trying to get Wild Growth and Innovate in hand so they can actually play something sooner than turn 4. Then they got Darnassus Aspirant, which didn't really help anything, but the hyper-aggressive decks, which used it as a body, because if you draw Darnassus Aspirant when you're in a late game, it's useless. And at least Wild Growth allows you to cycle cards. Then they got Living Roots that help them, you know, early game and late game. It can be used as removal. buff it up with a Zero Drake to 3 damage, and you're like, pew, for 1 mana. Yeah, Enchanted Raven in Arena is just gonna be crazy. In Constructed, I can see Beast Druid finally being viable and being played widely, which, you know, Blizzard always wanted. Since TGT, when they put Druid of the Fang, there was loads of beasts that came out. Knight of the Wild, I think that's the one that gets discounted, or Moonkin, Craze Moonkin, I don't remember. But yeah, those beasts have never worked out. The archetype has never emerged the way that Blizzard wanted it to, except for lately, and with this edition, it might actually become quite a strong ladder and competitive deck. Third card on the list is called Kindred Grandmother, and it's another beast, this time for hunters. It's a 1/1 for 2 mana. Weak stat line, but when it dies, it's summoned a 3/2 Big Bad Wolf. So both of these are beasts. Both of these can be buffed through Houndmaster. Both of these use as a trigger for kill command. And people are like, yeah, why would I play this over a huge toad when, you know, a huge toad is a 3/2 on turn 2 and it can start hitting in the face for free straight away. Which I understand, but the stickiness of this card is, I would argue, more important than having that 3/2 early on, because you can still use cards like Abusive Sergeant to buff it up. You know, you can trade this card into something like their Abusive Sergeant, and then you pop out another minion out of it, which is super, super strong. It might not be as strong as Creeper, and it's definitely good that this is in Hunter rather than, you know, a neutral card, because that would be just mental. And Haunted Creeper might be slightly better still, despite it being a neutral card, because the final stats is 3/4. And it's in 3 creatures. This is in 2 creatures, and it's a 4/3, which is slightly worse. You know, Haunted Creeper, when you buffed it with something like Abusive Sergeant, it could have killed like a Tonotrog or a Mana Worm and still survive in its first form. This will always die. And when someone uses an Earthshock on it, then yeah, you cry. But that's just a 1 mana difference, essentially. And it's still a card for a card. And if they use the Earthshock on that, they're not going to use it on your Savannah Highmane. So it's not that bad. I think this card will be put in a lot of Hunter decks, and it might slow them down just a slightly bit, but the overall value that they're going to get over time is better, in my opinion, than playing a huge toad anyway. Fourth card on the list is Ivory Night. So a lot of people looked at this card and they said it was bad, that why would they want to play this, you know, over something like Ancestral Healing. And I do understand where they're coming from, because Ancestral Healing can, you know, heal you for 20. You can stick it in between 2 actions. You can decide whether you spend 8 mana on it or 6 mana on it after playing a minion, whereas this one is not 100% reliable. But if you imagine this as a draw card mechanic and healing mechanic in for, you know, worth of 5 stats, because for 6 mana baseline you would get Bodifist Ogre, which is a 6/7. This one's got a draw mechanic, which is worth at least 1 mana, plus draw mechanic of your choice. And with you choosing which spell is, yeah, you can sometimes heal yourself for 1 or 0 if you pick Ancestor's Healing, but the next turn you heal yourself for 20. And that's what I think most people don't realize, is that, yeah, I get a heal for 1 when I choose Humility, or a secret or something, or I get 2 health when I choose Equality, but you destroy the board afterwards. And I was playing quite a lot of Healadin or N'Zoth Paladin, and, you know, sometimes you've got a turn when you can't play anything, and this card will allow you to put a body on board, discover a useful spell, and just, you know, stall the game. You would just play a card, you get a card back from it, and then you could use the spell to neutralize one of their minions. One of really cool spells that you can get through this is Enter the Colosseum. Yeah, you can get the high mana spells, like anything can happen. You can get Lay on Hands, you can get something like Avenging Wrath, and then the heal is big. But you might not sometimes want to really draw Lay of Hands in a control matchup. And your advantage in this is that you choose. You don't just draw a random Paladin spell, like in case of Grand Crusader, And that's why I think that this card could push itself to be included at least in one copy of some of the Healadin or Nuzov Paladin decks and help them out. I would actually say that this card might be sort of so-so, or it might be completely crazy. We shall see, but it's definitely not a bad card. Next card is a card for Rogue. It's called Ethereal Peddler, and for 5 mana, you get a 5/6, which, you know, as good as Pit Lord. Pit Fighter. Sorry, Pit Lord. Battlecry, reduce the cost of your cards in your hand from other classes by 2. So Burgle, it discounts something that you get from Undercity Huckster, and maybe if you're playing that Grand Crusader, you can get a discount on that. I don't believe that it's going to be discounting neutral cards as card from other class, because if it did, it would be kind of broken, I believe, because you would just play this and all neutral cards in your deck, and maybe those Burgles and Peddlers. But I think it's just from other classes. Now, we don't know if there's going to be another card that comes in a similar fashion like the Peddler is, the Huckster is, and Burgle. So there might be another card that draw mechanic is taking spells or minions from the opponent's class, which would make this card use, 6 different cards rather than 4 if you've got 2 copies of each. And some people say that this card is terrible. At this point, I think that it's not viable because there's not a deck that could use it. But that doesn't mean that there might not be one appearing in the future. And for arena purposes, that's just going to be a vanilla, 5/6. You might get that one crazy game when you burgled and then you play this and then you get, 2 4 mana discount. But yeah, that's not going to happen on a regular. All right, next card is the Curator. This is one of my favorite bosses in Karazhan. I remember farming this for my Rogue for a dagger or a T4 piece. For 7 mana, 4/6. Terrible stat line, but it's got Taunt, which is quite important. It can slow the game down. And as Battlecry, you draw a Beast, Dragon, and a Murloc from your deck. So I think this card is being looked at as, why would you want to draw a Murloc and a Beast and a Dragon? Why would you even want to play those free classes, those free tribes in your deck? And while I agree to this, it's not necessarily that you want to draw all 3 all the time, because it's viable to only draw 2 at a time. When you look at it, and Ben Bro was saying this from the perspective of Ancient of Lore, which for 7 mana was a 5/5 that drew you 2 cards, and those cards were on the top of your deck, whereas this one is sort of, affected by the way that you build your deck. It's a 4/6, which is a better stat line than a 5/5, and it's got a Taunt, where Ancient of Lore didn't have a Taunt. And now the card is already looking better. What could you want to draw as a Beast? So, if we're not counting, class Beasts, because, yeah, you probably want to draw a Savannah High main if you're playing this in Hunter. And you might be playing a Reno Hunter and include this. This is a card that's going to be quite strong in Reno decks if you can find a Beast and a Dragon and a Murloc that you want to include in Reno. But one of the neutral beasts that you could use is Stampeding Kodo. I think even Strangle Thorn Tiger wouldn't be that bad. In terms of dragons, Azure Drake is probably where you want to start. Then you can move up. You can search for Ysera, you can search for Alexstrasza, or whatever your deck will need. In terms of Murlocs, there's not a lot of good Murlocs that you want to choose, but even getting a Cold Light Oracle. So imagine you draw, as a dragon, you draw Azure Drake. As a Murloc, you draw Cold Light Oracle. As a beast, you draw whatever you want. But from this one card, you get 3 cards in your hand, or 2 to 3 cards. And then from those 2 cards, you draw another 3 cards. Now, the amount of value that you're already getting, and you being picky about when you play the Azure Drake and when you play the Cold Light Oracle, so it's to your best advantage, is quite insane. I think that people are misinterpreting this card as being just trash. I don't think that it's going to be trash, but it might be slightly underwhelming. We shall see. But the next legendary, I think, might unfortunately have Herald Volash's fate, and that's Barnes. which is the last card that we're going to take a look at. It's for 4 mana, 3/4, so it's losing 1/1 on something like a Yeti. Battlecry, it summons a 1/1, so these stats will be summoned when it comes into play. Copy of a random minion in your deck. So like Herald Volash makes copies of minions on your board when he comes into play. And as I said, Herald Volash wasn't too great. It didn't do well in the meta that it's right now. This card might be used in conjunctions with super strong Death Rattle minions or super strong cards that don't necessarily need stats for them to be good. I'm looking at Sylvanas, I'm looking at Emperor Thorson, I'm looking at Ragnaros, Ysera, all of those cards that don't really depend, or even Auctioneer, like they don't depend on the stats themselves. And usually it's enough for them to come into play or stay on board for one turn for you to get value out of it. And if you play this and you get a Ysera and then you get a Dream card, even if he pings that Ysera, you still got a Barnes, you got a Dream card, and they had to use something to kill that Ysera. Even if it's a ping that's 2 mana, that they haven't actually dealt with Barnes or the spell that you got. And if you summon a Sylvanas and they've got a full board, or you get 4 or more creatures, now they completely alterates their state of play. And they might ignore a Sylvanas, or they might, just go face, because Sylvanas needs to get 5 damage to itself before it steals a minion. If it's a 1/1 Sylvanas, it's slightly easier for her to kill herself and steal a minion. So this card might surprise us. I think it might be kind of underwhelming just because Herald Volash and how he turned out. But we shall see until all of the cards come out. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me and watching. I'm definitely going to be making reviews for the cards as they come out. So I'll keep you updated. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed and subscribe to my channel if you want more Hearthstone news and other stuff. Yeah, check them out. Anyways, guys, take care and bye!